Gamer Ahmer here. So today I wanted to go over my Nintendo 64 collection and explain some of the amazing titles that I grew up playing, why I collected for the Nintendo 64, and literally go over pretty much everything that you see here. So let's go ahead and check out this amazing worldwide set of Nintendo 64 items. So let's go ahead and celebrate 26 years of the Nintendo 64. Let's check it all out. So last month we celebrated 26 amazing years of this Nintendo 64 system. The system that actually got me into gaming. So even though I played some of the older consoles growing up, this jungle green Nintendo 64 that you see here, a part of this whole Funtastic series, this was actually my childhood Nintendo 64, my very first video game console, and I played some amazing games back in the day with my family and friends. So which system do you actually remember playing with as one of your firsts? Did you have the charcoal Nintendo 64? Did you have one of these pretty awesome Funtastic series Nintendo 64s? Or did you win one of these other obscure ones? So of course, let me know in the comments below which ones you actually started with and what games you remember playing. So as we kind of go through all of these Nintendo 64 games that I have, which is over 300 because I do have several variants, which are the player's choice variants, I have different cartridge color variants, and I just have so many extras than the North American set of Nintendo 64 games. So more than the 296 games. So I decided to get everything cleaned up, get everything on display, so that we could go ahead and talk about some of the games that shaped me, shaped some of these amazing Mario and Nintendo series that have been across various platforms since. So some of the games that of course are very expensive to have in your collection, some of them are just insanely expensive. Like this one right here, we have Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut. Now of course they did make another Clay Fighters game, but this one right here is a Blockbuster exclusive. So this is one that is just highly sought after because the cardboard and the manual alone can fetch you over $10,000. So this right here is actually from my childhood Blockbuster. So this one, when I found it for a few $100s as opposed to over $1,200, it's just beyond crazy that someone would actually pay that much for a single cartridge game. Now, if you're crazy like me, and you go for some really obscure items, you would say, what in the world is this double-sized Nintendo 64 game? This one right here is actually modeled after this particular release. So this is actually what developed this Rocket Robot on Wheels game, which is actually a very fun platforming game, and this is actually the prototype that has this amazing artwork called Sprocket. So before they could actually get licensing, they were going to call it Sprocket, but they went with Rocket Robot on Wheels. So this is actually what these amazing Nintendo 64 prototype games would actually look like, and these are items that the developers would actually work on. So this is actually really cool as it has some of the information for Sucker Punch, which you may actually realize today is a pretty awesome company that has some really fun and fantastic games. So of course, as we go through all of these different games here, you'll notice that a lot of these are some that you may remember, some that are definitely some hidden gems, and some that you definitely have to play today. So of course, growing up, everyone always went through the first party games where you'd play The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, or you'd even give a try to The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. So these are absolutely fantastic games, along with, of course, all of the Mario games. So you have Diddy Kong Racing, which is actually one of my favorite racing games as opposed to Mario Kart 64. Then you have all of the Mario parties. You have 1 through 3. You have Paper Mario, you have Kirby games, so you have so many Mario games throughout this entire system, but there is more than meets the eye. Back in the day, growing up, I played so many fun fighting games. Like, Fighting Force 64 was actually a really fun game. I know that they also had it on the PlayStation 1, but I grew up playing this with 4 people. We would all pick a different color controller. We'd have the atomic purple, we'd have some of the regular color controllers, and we would just really go through playing all of that. We'd all pick a different character. Just the multiplayer games that you could actually play is absolutely fantastic. And we would just go through and kind of beat up every single person in the game that you possibly could. You'd be kicking at the soda machines trying to revamp your health, and you just have a blast playing those games. Another cool fighting game that I really enjoyed was Killer Instinct. So many of you guys remember this on the Super Nintendo, but this one right here, Killer Instinct Gold, was definitely a classic. I loved playing it on the arcade machines back in the day, and of course, I wanted to play it back on my very own system, along with several of the Mortal Kombat games. Now, there are tons of fighting games on this whole entire system. There's just really endless amounts of different fighting games, different racing games. So, of course, as we go through, you'll see some different ones. This one right here is called Star Soldier, and this one is called Vanishing Earth. This is a fantastic shoot-'em-up game that you could actually play in North America. So this one right here definitely holds its value, as this is a really fun shoot-'em-up game, as you don't really see many of those on the Nintendo 64, unless you go for some Japanese titles. They do have several different games in Japan as opposed to over here. Of course, we really changed some things up with Star Fox 64, and we just had a blast kind of going through all of these different style games. And then, of course, who can forget playing through a lot of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. They had Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, 2, and 3. Of course, I played on the Nintendo 64 as opposed to the PlayStation 1, so I really had a blast actually playing through, kind of going through a lot of these games, getting used to this crazy controller. And if that is your only complaint of not playing the Nintendo 64, Retro Fighters and these other companies, they do make some really awesome Nintendo 64 controllers. They have some that are wired, some that are wireless, and that really help you go through and play different games such as GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, and pretty much any other shooting style game that you may actually complain about if you were to play this crazy controller from back in the day. But I absolutely love this controller. I had to go through and pretty much get all of the matching controllers to the systems. You'll see that we have the 6 Fantastic Series controllers and systems here that are US releases. We have the Japanese kind of variants as well, where you have that 2-tone color system and 2-tone color controller. We even have a couple of the exclusives in Japan, like the Justco and the Daihawks, for the different sports teams that they would actually have. Then we have some Pikachu ones. So of course we have 2 of the Japanese exclusives, and then we have the darker blue, which is the North American exclusive. And then of course we have various controllers that kind of match with those systems. We even have the Pokemon Battle Set, which would be over in Australia is where I actually got mine from. And that one has a different controller variant, as the colors are actually swapped for the Pokemon ones. Then we have some really cool charcoal color systems and controllers. We even have that really awesome gold Toys R Us exclusive, where you can get that gold color. That is just a fantastic system right there. Then we even have some of the ones that you could actually get in Korea, like the Hyundai Convoy variant, as opposed to whatever it would be at the time, the Nintendo 64. They actually had to kind of change up the name and everything else. So that is also a very cool variant. And I have the Hyundai Convoy red variant controller that is insanely rare for that particular system. We also have the Japanese ANA, which you might have actually won on an airline back in the day, and it would have been bundled with Hey You Pikachu and of course Pokemon Stadium. So those are just some of my all-time favorites in my collection right here. And then of course all of the Nintendo Power controllers that you could win, like the gold Nintendo Power, and even that really cool Donkey Kong 64 controller, that yellow one. Of course I am missing the Millennium 2000 controller, which is two-toned, of that really cool metallic silver with the black underneath. And then, of course, the gold E3 controller, where they only made about 12 of those. Those are very awesome, very difficult to find. I would love to have one of those. But I do actually have a really cool Hello Mac Japanese controller and a Jeffrey for Toys R Us. So I really like how those have the mascots on them. And then, of course, you can't go wrong with the Atomic Purple and the Extreme Green controllers. So pretty much all of this stuff right here is just insane to have, insane to collect for, and this is something that I started collecting early, before a lot of these jumped up in price. Like, of course, Super Bowling, trying to get that one for a good price, even Stunt Racer 64, and of course, Worms Armageddon. Some of those are just insanely expensive, and it's just crazy to see a lot of this stuff jump up in price. But there are so many fantastic games on the Nintendo 64. Some people don't believe that, but of course, if you go through and you grew up with this system and you played a lot of these games and you really give it a fair try, you'll learn that even some of their crazy racing games, like the Beetlebug Adventure Racing, and just so many others, are so much fun. Now, of course, playing Superman 64 is not the way to go, but kind of going through all of these other games, definitely worth the experience, worth going through, playing some of these games like Wave Race 64. I played that one quite a bit, and of course, they have Snowboard Kids. There's just so many obscure, odd titles like Goemon's Adventure, just so many cool classic games on this system. Some that you may not have even heard of, and of course some of the sports titles as well. I loved playing the wrestling games back in the day. I really went through. You could kind of customize your character, customize different things while you were playing, and just really having a blast with a lot of people playing these systems, kind of before a lot of the other systems went where you could actually play 4 people at once. So this is actually a very fun console for me to collect for, and I've collected so many cool obscure items along the way, like my Conker's Bad Fur Day press kit is definitely a blast to have in my collection. Just some really rare items, like some for Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia only style games that I have in my collection, different box systems, the video game kiosks, the video game jackets, just so many different cool things, the console variants, the Nintendo 64 displays, the signs, the lights, and so much more. So make sure you guys stay tuned, as I always update whenever I pick up more games in my collection. And of course, let me know what you guys think about the Nintendo 64. Do you guys think that this is insane to have literally a worldwide set of games, consoles, controllers, and of course the list goes on? What do you guys think about it? Would you love to have an amazing Nintendo 64 collection like this, with all of the displays, the lights, the neons, the video game kiosks, and just so much more stuff? Just let me know in the comments below. And of course, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Go ahead and check out my other videos and stay tuned for more.